Now available for the first time on Google Play, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are falling apart in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy on Google Play today. On Sunday, there was a tragic mass shooting at a ballroom in California, and 10 people wound up losing their lives, and 10 more wound up getting injured as a mass shooter went into one ballroom and wound up trying to shoot up the spot. Now, it is alleged that 72-year-old Hugh Cantram went into the Star Ballroom dance studio and pulled out a firearm with an extended clip and wound up shooting and murdering 10 people and wounding 10 others on Lunar New Year's Eve. And 20 minutes after shooting up the Star Ballroom dance hall, he then walked into the Lele Ballroom and studio and then looked to murder 2 more people. However, 2 individuals wound up disarming him, took possession of his weapon, and he wound up running away and escaped into a cargo van, which was seen at leaving the scene of the shooting. And officers used their patrol vehicles to go out and box the vehicle in. And after he was confronted by SWAT officers, Hugh Cantram allegedly wound up taking his life. Now, the police are seeing this mass shooting in the Asian community as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the alleged actions of Hugh Cantram, they fit right in line with the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And based on the information I have received reading different articles, it definitely looks like Hugh Cantram definitely was a man in crisis who was seething in anger for a period of decades over numerous issues in his life. And Hugh Cantram, allegedly many people in the community say he was a very extremely hostile and difficult man to deal with, and his really negative attitude could have been one of the things that laid the foundation for him being ostracized from the dance hall community in the Asian community, and that possibly could be, as I see it, a motive for murder. Now, I believe what happened was because of Hugh Cantram's alleged bad attitude and very hostile demeanor. This was what led to him being somebody that many in the dance hall community possibly didn't want to deal with anymore. And over the course of Chinese New Year, they decided possibly not to invite Hugh Cantram to celebrate Chinese New Year with them. And I believe it was possibly this social slight that led to Hugh Cantram going from seething in anger about being dissatisfied with the state of his life to exploding in a rage where he looked to participate in a mass shooting. Because many beta males, they really take it very personally when they are rejected. And when they are rejected from social circles, many of these men, this is one of the things that motivates them to possibly go out and participate in the extreme act of violence, such as a mass shooting. Because many of your beta males, when they get rejected socially, they take that humiliation very personally, and they want to go out and get even with any individual who has gone out and rejected him. And according to some reports, they said that Hugh Cantram shot people at point-blank range, and that really shows me not only malice of forethought, but it also shows me that he was actually targeting his victims. And this is something many beta males do because they want to get revenge on those individuals in that social circle for actively going out and rejecting them. And this is their way of making those people pay for pushing them out of a social circle by taking their lives. So that's what it looks like to me as related to Hugh Cantram's motive for murder, and again, him going directly up to those people, many of them who were in their 60s and their 70s, really shows me that he had an actual vendetta against these individuals. And they also said that when he was in the parking lot, he actually shot one person, and that really shows me that again that he was actually targeting his victims. And this is something that beta males will do, because a beta male wants to get revenge on those who he believes slighted him. He wants to get revenge on those who he thinks offended him, and he wants to actively go out here and actively target these individuals, because many of these beta males, this is about making people not only pay, but also hurting the family members of those individuals and letting everybody know that they are going to suffer for rejecting them from those social circles. Now, I also think that he also did this during Chinese New Year because he also wanted to send a message. Because when it comes to beta males, when they feel like they have had a miserable life, they want to do something that will allow people to remember them in infamy. And what I believe your Hugh Can Tram wanted to do was he wanted to go out in infamy by participating in this mass shooting on Lunar New Year, so that everyone would always remember him for going out and taking the lives of all of his enemies and going out and doing this in an infamous fashion. So a lot of beta males, when they feel dissatisfied with life, like I believe Hugh Can Tran did, because even though he went to the ballroom dance every day and possibly met his wife there, things didn't work out in his life. He was not a respected ballroom dancer, and he was not somebody people wanted to teach dancing. And he also had a marriage to one of the people who he had met at the ballroom, and that marriage ended in 2005, because with many beta males, when they go out and get married, they look for their world to be smooth, and when their world isn't made smooth, what they do is look to divorce that woman, because they're not living in a world that they want to live in. So with the beta male, when things don't work out with a woman, what they do is look to end the marriage, because they want their world smooth. They want a world with no conflicts, no problems, and no obstacles. And in marriage, there are going to be conflicts, problems, and obstacles. And it looks like since he filed for divorce, he was the source of all of his problems. He was the source, because with beta males, they don't want to deal with conflict. And this was a big problem that possibly led to the extreme, negative attitude that Hugh Can Tran possibly had, because as he was teaching in the ballroom, he didn't understand that when you're teaching, there's going to be conflict. You're going to have to work with your students, but he didn't want to do this because he wanted a smooth world where people just did what he told them. And the same thing in his marriage. He possibly wanted a marriage where people did what he told them, but that's not how things work in the real world. No, in the real world, people have to deal with disagreements, people have to deal with arguments, and people have to work through their issues with others. Unfortunately, many beta males, due to the dysfunctional way they have been raised, do not know how to deal with conflict. They do not know how to resolve conflict, and they do not know how to navigate through their emotions. No, many of these males, because they do not have these male life skills taught to them at an early age, they wind up simmering and seething in anger for extended periods of time. And as they're simmering and seething in anger, what they do is compound all of these slights, and they keep holding a whole book of grudges against individuals for little slights. And I believe that's exactly what Hugh Can Tran was doing, holding a book filled with slights against people. And then when those people finally went out and said they were tired of dealing with this guy's negative attitude and him basically putting a rain cloud on the party, what they did was not invite him, I believe, to the party. And this is what led to the explosion of rage, I believe, from your Hugh Can Tran as related to his alleged actions. Because with many beta males, they will go out and orbit a social circle, and make people feel extremely uncomfortable with their antisocial behavior. And when those people get tired of having to tolerate this individual's antisocial behavior and their bad attitude, what people do is they decide to let this person out of their social circles, and instead of this person just taking the hint, putting a period at the end of things and moving on, what these individuals do is they take it very personally, and as they take it personally, they go out here and plot their revenge. So that's what I believe happened with Hugh Cantran, because I've read the pattern and profile of many beta males. And again, many beta males, they participate in this kind of violence when they do get rejected. And it's that explosion of rage that leads to them going out and looking to take the lives of individuals, all because they choose not to be in their company. And it just shows how deeply depraved these individuals are, because any other person would put a period at the end of things and move on. But these males, they cannot put a period at the end of things unless they can go out here and bring people's lives to become as miserable as they are. Now, what I find to be troubling is that this man, after participating in the murders there, went to another ballroom, and when he went into that ballroom, he looked to murder more people. But thank God there was an individual who disarmed the suspect, and once they disarmed the suspect, that's when we saw the cowardice of the beta male, because the beta male, after being confronted by individuals who would push back, younger individuals, because it was a young man who disarmed this old beta male, he then got in his vehicle, and then when he ran and got in his vehicle, he was confronted by police. And when he was confronted by the whole idea of being held accountable for his actions, that's when Hugh Cantran allegedly wound up taking his life, because this is the whole pattern for beta males. Whenever they do get angry, it's an entire paradigm, and that paradigm is collecting grudges from individuals, getting rejected by those individuals, and then going to look to get revenge on those individuals by doing them harm, and then after this, then looking to avoid being held accountable for their actions, and that's when they take their life. That's the pattern for these beta males, and again, these beta males just continue to participate in this behavior. And what's really interesting to me is that in the aftermath of this mass shooting, there were individuals who wanted to try to make it look like, oh, this could have been a mass shooting as a hate crime, but we see that it wasn't really what they would call a hate crime. And we see that in the Asian community, which talked about the anti-Asian hate bill, that we see that there are individuals in the community who are filled with a lot of anger and hatred towards people in their own community, and this was the motive for murder in this case. But the mainstream media was going to try to put a black narrative on it, but we see that it wasn't a black narrative. No, what happened here with this mass shooting was we had a old beta male, and this old beta male, who was a man in crisis, caused a great tragedy on the first day of the Lunar New Year. And this first day of the Lunar New Year just shows us how much worse the man crisis is getting, because just the next day after this, there was another mass shooting, which I will be covering in another video, and it just shows how the man crisis has come to the leftist state of California's Asian community, which oftentimes push narratives that black people were the instigators of all of this so-called anti-Asian violence. But we've got an Asian man participating in anti-Asian violence, and we don't really see anybody talking about that at all, nor do we see people talking about the man crisis and how much worse the man crisis is getting in this country, because this incident basically shows us how much worse things are getting, because we're seeing an increase in frequency of these kinds of murders. And the reason why we're seeing this kind of violence is due to the dysfunctional way boys are raised to become men, boys are socialized to become men, and many of these males who are out here, many of these males do not have the proper male life skills or male survival skills to navigate the world. And that was shown to me as related to the behavior of Hugh Cantram, a man who could not socialize, a man who had poor social skills, a man who had a hard time having social relationships, and because he did not know how to have social relationships or know how to conflict resolve or problem solve, this man became a headache in the community, and as he became a headache in the community decided to cure their headache by cutting this man out of their social circles possibly, and instead of him learning where he went wrong socially, what happened was he looked to go out here and hurt those who walked away from him. And again, this fits right in line with that pattern and paradigm for a beta male. And this is something many in America don't want to talk about, because many in America don't want to acknowledge that we have a problem with the way men are being socialized in this country, and the way we're socializing men in this country are creating men in crisis who are frequently going out here and dealing with their inability to function in the world by participating in the wanton violence like mass shootings that get worse with each passing day. And it gets worse with each passing day because we have a group of males who are men in crisis, and America doesn't want to acknowledge that we have a man crisis in this country. Now, if you want to learn what motivates many beta males to participate in their dysfunctional behavior and participate in violence like this, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me talk about more men's issues or men in crisis, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback and e-readers everywhere at online booksellers today. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker at online booksellers today.